Woo! Welcome back, Trevor Crowe. Trevor and friends. Sitting with me right now is Tony Bolton. He is a very famous citizen of Greenwich. Hi, Tony.
Hey, Trevor. How you feel today?
Very good. It's been a good day. We've had some good conversations, a lot going on, and I don't know. I just kind of want to talk to you. Let's talk about trending Greenwich, right?
Wonderful. Let's talk about what's trending in Greenwich. What's trending in Greenwich?
Well, I'm excited about the Hamel rink.
Oh yes, that's going to be wonderful. Years ago I went to that rink, and it was pretty rinky-dink. But now, with the new plans and the new opening, all of that, it's going to be wonderful. And kids can skate and adults can skate, and it's wonderful.
It's really cool. And, well, since we're thinking skating, I'm so excited by the Winter Olympics.
Yes, everyone should tune in and be a part of the Winter Olympics. It's a wonderful and exciting time for the world to get together to see the great athletes and to make sure that we are supporting our various causes and make sure that we get in there for the sport that we enjoy.
Yeah, it's really cool. So just if you can, be sure to watch the men's short or long program, because Ilya Malinin, who is called the Quad God.
The Quad God.
The man can do 7 quadruples in a 5-minute program. This truly has completely changed the whole nature of skating. He is incredible. He's handsome. He's charismatic. He's graceful. And literally, he himself brought. Well, no, I mean the USA team is phenomenal. We have really, really great skaters.
Yes.
Amber Glenn just won. I mean, there's just so many great things.
I love skating.
I love skating too. And I think we just have to think about all of those great athletes who work so hard to get to that place. And a part of me is sad for Lindsey Vonn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. When you work really hard and you get within reach of your goal, you have to do everything you can to get there. Mm-hmm. And you have to stay there because it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Very few people come back.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And what she did at, I think, 41 or whatever her age is, I know she didn't make it all the way down the hill, and I was very sad that she crashed. But boy, oh boy, she's an amazing woman. All right, we have another guest coming in.
Wonderful.
Tony, thank you for
Tony B is Tony B is out
me.
there. So glad that you could stop by.
Betsy McCaughey.
Betsy McCaughey. All right, Betsy, have a seat.
Hi, Betsy. Hi. Come on out.
Hi, Betsy. Sit down. We got to talk to you. So sitting next to me, just arrived in the studio, looking quite fabulous. No, we don't need them today. Here, we'll do a little quick smile into our camera. Hello, big smile. And Betsy's wearing red, looking quite fabulous. Tell us a little bit here, because I've read some things on you, not a whole lot, but you are running against Governor Ned Lamont to be the GOP governor of Connecticut. You have 2 other people you're running against. One is Ryan Fazio, and the other is Aaron Stewart. So what's the difference between you and the other 2 Republican candidates?
Well, I'm a battle-tested candidate who has a long track record as a policy expert and a victorious candidate. In 1994, another left-wing governor was aiming for a 3rd term. His name was Mario Cuomo.
Okay.
And people said he was unbeatable. They were talking about putting him on the U.S. Supreme Court. They said nobody could beat Mario Cuomo, and George Pataki and I campaigned to crisscross New York State, explaining that if we lowered taxes, New York would be far more prosperous. And we beat him. We whipped Mario Cuomo from one end of the state to the other.
I do.
61 out of 62 counties. So I'm going to do it again.
You'll do it again.
I've
Okay.
already made it clear that I'm going to eliminate the Connecticut income tax.
And I really wanted to talk to you about that. But before we move on to that topic, which is incredibly important, you were a lieutenant governor of the state of New York, which is a huge state, huge amount of...
About 12 times the size of Connecticut.
Yeah,
but
massive.
Connecticut's in my heart because I grew up here. And I grew up in Milford and Westport. My dad was a factory worker at the W.E. Bassett nail clipper factory in Derby, Connecticut. And back then, Connecticut was so different. It was a real opportunity state. It was bustling. There was no income tax. And even though we didn't have a lot monetarily, I could just feel the opportunities around me. When I won a scholarship to college, I'll never forget the day my dad put that Vassar decal on the back of his old blue Dodge Dart and drove me to college. It was the biggest day of his life.
Vassar's
the
a
tears
great
rolled
school.
down his face. And since then, I've had a life of successes I never dreamed possible, but it all started here in the public schools of Connecticut, in a state that was at that time booming. Now Connecticut, believe it or not, ranks 48th out of 50 states in economic growth. And young people are
leaving.
leaving.
Why that is? Have you taken a good hard look? Because we have very, very expensive housing, so it's hard to get young people to stay here.
No, the reason they're not coming is that jobs are leaving because companies are leaving. We've lost 5,800 jobs in the last year, and companies leave because of the high tax rates, the high energy costs. It's not just the cost of housing, it's that the government is very unfriendly to business. In fact, Chief Executive Magazine ranks Connecticut 46 out of 50 in business friendliness. Very bad. The Tax Foundation rates it 47th out of 50th in tax friendliness. And Rich State, Poor States ranks at 48th out of 50 in growth. So Connecticut is losing in all these areas, and it's because Ned Lamont refuses to compete.
So I want you to explain to us how you would get rid of the state income tax. Because
I'm so glad
that
you
is
asked.
such an interesting idea. Of course, all of us would like to pay less taxes. That's true. But how would you run this state without having income tax? Because I believe about half of the budget, 50% of the budget, is
12.5 billion out of 24 billion comes from the income tax. But let me first set the stage. 9 states don't have an income tax, and 8 others are currently outlawing it. South Carolina, a place many Connecticut people move to, hardly a backwater. They are outlawing their income tax right now, phasing it down to 0, and 7 other states have already done that. So I looked carefully at how they did it, right? It's clearly possible. And what they did was when you tax something less, you get more of it. So as soon as you announce that you're going to eliminate the state income tax, companies start to move in. Right now, we see that over half the CEOs in this country are willing to move their company to a state that is more tax friendly. And unfortunately, Ned Lamont is ignoring that. He's not competing. But you see the other states are competing very aggressively for business. I can tell you that Iowa, for example, I used to work closely with Kim Reynolds when she was Lieutenant Governor of Iowa, and I was Lieutenant Governor of New York. Now she's Governor of Iowa, and she's brought down her corporate tax rate and income tax rate 80%. So all across the country, states are doing this, and the businesses are coming in. And when I announced that Connecticut will no longer have an income tax, the moving vans will be lined up on 95. You won't even be able to get onto the highway.
I love the positivity. Okay, so let's slow down here because I don't think a lot of people understand that when you move to a state that does not have an income tax, you will be taxed, but in a different way. It'll be property taxes. It'll be taxes
You're
on
wrong.
all sorts of other.
Let me
I'm
point
actually
out-
not, and
let
I'd be
me-
happy to
let me
pull up
point
numbers
out
for you.
that you will not have the same total
be-
tax burden. If that were true, all states would be equal. They're not. When you look at the Tax Foundation ranking, Connecticut is near dead last, 47th, because they have so many taxes. Living in Connecticut is like being pecked to death by a duck. You get taxed on everything. You get taxed on cars. Most states don't do that. You get taxed on literally everything. But let me just point out.
I am actually a supporter of less taxes, believe it or not, and I'm a full-on Democrat. But I'm also a believer that we do have to make sure that kids are not hungry at school, that they cannot learn if they're literally have had nothing to eat at breakfast or even lunch. So I do think there's things that we can do as
Absolutely.
civilized society. So how do we support our social programs if we have no income tax?
I think it's very important to support those social programs. In fact, when I was Lieutenant Governor of New York, I was the sponsor of pre-kindergarten in New York. I'm an enlightened person.
I love it. So wait, how are we going to pay for that?
Right, we can pay for those things.
How?
We can, because I was about to explain, when you tax something less, you get more of it. That's Milton Friedman. So whatever it is, if you tax less of it, you get more of it. If you tax it more, you get less of it. Because
so you understand that Milton Friedman's whole idea of the world is we're going to maximize shareholder value.
No, that's
and what's happened since then, since the late 70s, early 80s, we have a sick income inequality in this country that literally we're at the state now.
I don't think you've read very much Milton Friedman.
Oh yeah, no, I know enough that we have income inequality that is
that
so
name
brutal.
sparked kind of vitriol from you, but the fact is Milton and Rose Friedman were fine economists, and what I'm explaining to you is when you tax something less, I'm going to say it once more and explain how it works. For example, in South Carolina, which has just written their law, every time revenue increases 5%, they knock the income tax rate lower. So they're not cutting the total amount available to spend on hungry kids, for example, although there is an incredible amount of waste in Connecticut, as you probably have read recently, the fraud going on in Connecticut. But the fact is, overall business activity will be so much stronger once you cut and phase out the income tax.
I don't know, Betsy. I've seen a lot of billionaires pay less and less in taxes.
I think you're reading the wrong things.
No, if you look at even what just happened
let me ask you something.
The big, beautiful
Let's
bill,
go to the 9 states.
We just cut about $52 billion out of what billionaire Amazon, Meta, et cetera, pay in taxes. So the U.S. government brought in $51 billion less because we lowered billionaire.
You're talking about federal taxes.
I know,
I'm talking about state taxes.
The idea that if you keep cutting taxes,
if you want to continue this instead of just sounding like a crazy nut.
I am not a crazy nut, but I'm really delighted to have you on my.
Right.
I disagree.
Why don't we
Betsy.
look at the states that have already phased out the income tax? Children are not starving in those states. The school systems are doing very well in those states. The fact is that more businesses have moved into those states, and you know what the best welfare program is, the best affordability program, a good job and a growing paycheck. And that's what more people in Connecticut need. There isn't enough job opportunity here. I was just talking to kids at the Young Republican Connecticut Assembly up in Hartford last Saturday, and I asked them, when you graduate from college, you staying in the state? No, we can't find jobs here.
Well, you can't. It's really hard for kids to afford to live here because of housing.
It's not the affordability. They can't find a job.
So you're wrong there again. There's 90,000 jobs that are open in the state of Connecticut.
End this.
Oh, you want to leave? Oh,
yeah,
because I was about to
it's a very
just
unfriendly
tell you this
interview.
Oh, well, I'm
Nice to
sorry,
meet you.
because I love to have a good debate.
Well, it's not a good debate. You are shouting over me. You don't have the facts. If you
I-
want to have a
I
civil
do.
debate, it's one thing.
Do you
but
know
you haven't
that-
cited any of your sources.
Yes, okay. Electric Boat is putting up 8,000 new jobs this year in Connecticut.
Okay, but what
That's
is the
pretty
total
good.
number of jobs that Connecticut has
Okay,
lost
can
in the
you
last
look it
year?
up in- I think
5,800 private sector jobs left
So,
the state last year.
We have 90,000 open jobs in this state. That's been true for many years because we don't have people trained in the technical abilities to do those jobs. We have Electric Boat, we have manufacturing, Sikorsky, et cetera, et cetera. We literally are not training our young people to do a bunch of these jobs.
Well, that may be true also, but the fact is the jobs are leaving the state. We have a net decrease in private sector employment in this state. And the reason is that the taxes are too high, the electric rates are too high, and so companies are leaving for fairer climates.
Well, we have had a great deal of job loss in the entire country. So whether
No,
and
that's
again,
not true. I'm going to get my phone if you're getting
Okay.
your phone.
Yeah, here we go. 70 to 80,000 job openings according to our labor statistics.
Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Yeah, exactly. So the jobs are here. It's just really hard for people to afford to live here. And we've been talking about this forever, which is we need to work on our housing, our transportation, and energy
I
costs.
don't like this lady at all.
So, okay. Well, Betsy,
Nice
thank
to meet you
Oh,
another
thank
time.
you for coming on.
Yeah.
You have a very nice day. Take care. Okay, folks. Well, that was an interesting experience. Betsy McCaughey was here. She is the GOP candidate, or one of the 3 GOP candidates. She's running against Ryan Fazio and Aaron Stewart to be the the candidate to run against Governor Ned Lamont, who is going to be running for his third term. So really
This
wish
was an
you the best.
exceptionally unwelcoming venue. I've never walked out of an interview in my life, but I've also never been
right.
shouted down by somebody who has very little knowledge and very strong opinions.
Thank you, Betsy, for dropping in. You take care. Is that your phone?
No, that's mine.
Oh, that's yours. Okay. Anyway, so everybody, the very interesting conversation, and yes, it was very exciting, and we've lost jobs in this country across the board, no question. And of course, I believe I don't know the exact numbers for jobs that we've lost in Connecticut. Do we want to look it up?
We're doing a little Google search here while we're on it, and I just want to say that I also offered Betsy. This is Lisa Hannick. I also offered Betsy to, while I'm here on my phone Googling, to look at her source as well to see where she's getting her information, but she declined. I think she was too upset and she left. It's hard, I think, sometimes to have disagreeing. You as a therapist, Trevor, probably know how this works and how to navigate it. But sometimes people get emotional when you're having a disagreement. But, I think in our political atmosphere, and we all have different sources of information. We all have, disagreeing viewpoints. We have to be able to manage that discomfort and talk to each other and disagree, but find ways through those conversations regardless. Otherwise, we're not going to go anywhere.
Exactly. And that's actually the point of the show, which is to be able to have these conversations, which are tough. And there's a part of me that would love to see lower income taxes, right? I think all of us would like to pay less in taxes. But we really would need to do whatever the cutting is to do it in a way that we don't, cut to the bone where we're really hurting our social programs, childcare, SNAP benefits, all these things that we know as a society, there's our vulnerable populations that need support. And the idea that you just cut everything to the bone, I think doesn't work.
I think, this is a conversation we've had, since the beginning of the country and probably before that. It's finding a balance. There are different viewpoints on the best way to manage this, but usually the best solutions are somewhere in the middle. I feel like it's like driving and roads. You can't make the road too slick, but you can't make it too difficult too, because then your tires get worn out. You have to find that balance in the middle. And so we have to, again, I'm just coming back to the fact that I think we have to have these conversations about where the middle is. We obviously, the whole point of a government, in my view, is to consolidate resources so that we can build things that benefit everyone. And you can't, for example, if you live on a street, you've just built a house on a street, and other people have as well, but there's no road, right? If everybody is left to build the road just in front of their house, you're not going to have a road, because some people can't afford it. Some people will build a nice asphalt road. Some people will put, cobblestone down, and no one's going to go anywhere that way. So in some cases, it's better if everyone pulls their money and we create a common project and a road gets built, and that's what I think government is for.
And I fully agree with that. And we really do have an incredible state. We have our problems. I'm not going to, whitewash it and go, everything's just peachy keen here in Connecticut. We absolutely need to take care of our transportation, our energy problems, and our housing. Those are definitely big, difficult things for our young people to afford to be able to come and live here. Yes, companies don't want to move here because it's not just the taxes. It really isn't. It is, can my young people who are with my company afford a house within an hour's drive? So the commute's not so crazy. And the thing that's great about Connecticut is we have a highly educated workforce. We're one of the most educated states in the country. And in fact, we have the most highly productive workforce. So Connecticut's an amazing place.
Well, we also have great schools, great hospitals, great medical care. It's true. A lot of people don't want to pay too much in taxes, but a lot of people want these nice amenities too. A lot of people come here for the schools and the health care. And so you have to find that balance.
And another great thing about Connecticut is we're about 94 or 97% vaccinated. So we're not having outbreaks of measles, which down in South Carolina they are, which they're getting encephalitis, etc. So there are some good reasons to be in blue states. Yes, I would love to see some lower taxes, really, truly. I mean, personally, I think we all, it's painful when you write those checks. But to your point, is we have to have infrastructure. We have to have a decent well, in fact, we have a great education system, quite honestly.
Yeah, we have, top in the
the last thing I wanted to, not last thing, but Connecticut has, so the United States is number one in productivity per employee. Number one in the world. Like, you can go to Japan, China, et cetera, but the U.S. employment productivity is number one. We are number 4. Little tiny Connecticut. Number 4 in productivity. People actually do want to come here and do business, et cetera. But we do have some of these issues that need to be solved.
Yeah. Let's, I feel we don't want to be an echo chamber. And if Bob is willing to join in, because we did want to get a Republican. I don't mean to out you, Bob. We did want to get a Republican viewpoint. So if you disagree or want to chime in on anything, Bob, please feel free.
I'm nothing right now.
Yeah.
You got nothing. Okay.
Nothing. That's okay. That's okay. But I do think we absolutely need people who are challenging Ned Lamont, whether you're Josh Elliott and a Democrat challenging or a GOP challenger. We need Republicans to come out in the state and have an opinion and a viewpoint. Yeah. I think we do need to listen, and we have to be able to disagree. Right?
We have to be able to talk, even if we disagree. We really do.
Yeah, definitely talking is important. But I do think we've gone off the rails in some economic ways. And I do, if you go way back to Milton Friedman, which apparently Betsy had issues with, we have all of our companies, et cetera, private equity, the whole point is maximizing shareholder value. So what you're doing is you're making sure that your workers work harder, you get the most amount of dollars out of everything that you do. Now, there's something very good about innovation, creation, and being productive, but we've had this incredible income inequality that has occurred since the 80s, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty clear. I don't think anyone can argue with that.
Right.
Right? So I believe what we've got is the problem is this wrong tax structure.
Yes, I think I hope we can all agree that people who made it in this country, should pay back in. Billionaires not paying taxes. Corporations like Amazon paying 0 taxes is just obscene. This country provided the infrastructure for them to succeed, and it's only the right thing to do to pay some back, and they'd still be so super wealthy.
Yeah, it is. It's a form of corporate welfare, what we're doing right now. And if you look at Walmart, who employs over 1 million employees a year, yet their employees are one of the greatest users of SNAP benefits.
Right. So we are, as taxpayers, subsidizing.
We are subsidizing the Walton family. They made $118 billion last year.
Right.
Is that right?
So you could either raise minimum wage, have them pay taxes, or both.
I think probably ways. We haven't raised minimum wage in this country. It's $7.25. I think in 15 or 18 years, I'd have to look up that number too. So it's really very, very time for us to expect workers to be paid a living wage, I believe. I really do.
I think that, we need to get back to having a government that represents people's interests, humans' interests, not corporations. Corporations are not people. And they have different interests. Their interests are rightly in making a profit. That's their job. But, the reason for government is to represent what people need, what, humans need. Humans need health care. Corporations don't need doctors. We need housing. People have different needs than corporations, and we need a government that represents people.
I agree with you, and I really hope that this next generation, Brandon Moore was here earlier in the show today, and this is the next generation who's looking at the pitfalls or the things that we have done. I'm older than you.
Not that much, but yes.
But we have screwed up.
Well, maybe, but I think it goes way back. It goes back to Reagan. Maybe it goes back to Nixon. I don't know my history well enough to say. We could call up, see if Heather Cox Richardson will come on and tell us exactly where it goes
her on
back
the show. She's amazing.
But I think, Citizens United has been one of the worst things that's happened to our
Yes.
country, and I'm fully behind the next generation.
So wait, you have to explain Citizens United. So if anybody tuning in right now.
Well, it was a Supreme Court decision. I think it was in the early 2000s.
Yep, that's right. Maybe 2010
And
or 8.
It established that corporations are people who, and as such, they have a right to political speech, and what that meant was they can give massive amounts of money to political campaigns. And this comes back to what I've been saying, and I think what we've been saying is that we need a government that represents human beings, not corporations, because we have different needs and different interests. And capitalism is great, and it can work really well. I grew up under capitalism, and it worked fine at that.
Sure.
I didn't grow up in a very wealthy home. I had a single working mom. But we always had food. We always went to the doctor. It worked fine. But I think back then we had a government who was looking after people and enacting policies that helped people.
I think there's so many forces at work here, which is so many things are unaffordable today, and I'm not sure the government is necessarily the one to fix it. Housing, for example, it's so expensive, and interest rates super high. Actually, they're not. Super high interest rates were when we were younger. I'm looking at Bob. I think it was 17 or 19% when I graduated from college. Something like that. It was Paul Volcker.
That is amazing.
Outlier for sure.
But they were. I remember being on a government bond trading desk in New York City, and all the traders were starting to refinance, and they were like, "Ooh, 9% mortgages," or it was a big deal. Anyway, we just have a couple minutes left, so we've had an interesting day. The show is Trevor and Friends. We had Betsy McCaughey on briefly. She did not like my interview style, but we did learn about she wants to get rid of the income taxes of this state. She had a lot of negative things to say about our state. I want to disagree in many ways because we do have job openings, etc. But ultimately, and I think what Lisa Hannick is saying is, we do believe the government, given the right policy, the right people, can do good things. And listening to Brandon Moore earlier today, where he worked with Governor Lamont on policy issues, helping people try to get veterans, for example, people re-entering housing and jobs, et cetera, that there is good to be done. Right, Lisa?
Yeah, I think ideally, the government is us. We elect people to do the things that we need help with and that people need. So
and you can protest without getting kicked off TSA. So this is Trevor Crow, Trevor and Friends. The show is brought to you by trevorcrow.com. That would be me and my business. And everybody have an amazing week. Take care.